Why do we fear anger? Why do we suppress it, lock it away, treat it as a flaw rather than a force? The answer is woven into the very fabric of our psychology, our culture, and our philosophy. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow self, the part of us that houses the emotions we deny, repress, or deem unacceptable. Anger, in particular, is often cast into this psychological abyss, hidden from view because we fear what it might reveal about us. To acknowledge our anger is to admit to our wounds, our injustices, our unmet needs. It is to confront the raw, unfiltered truth of our inner world. But society has long taught us that anger is primitive, uncivilized, even immoral. From childhood, we are conditioned to equate anger with loss of control, with irrationality, with danger. We are told that to be good, we must be patient, agreeable, forgiving. The notion of the righteous, calm individual is upheld as the ideal, one who swallows their frustrations, who endures rather than resists, who suppresses rather than confronts. This conditioning runs deep. Think of religious doctrines that equate anger with sin. Think of cultural norms that stigmatize displays of rage, especially in certain groups. Women who express anger are seen as hysterical, men as dangerous, entire communities as unstable or threatening. The message is clear. Anger is unacceptable. It must be neutralized, extinguished, buried beneath layers of civility. And yet, this suppression comes at a cost. What happens to all that buried rage? Does it simply disappear? Number. It festers. It turns inward, manifesting as self-doubt, as depression, as quiet resentment. It erodes self-worth, convincing us that our needs, our injustices, our suffering do not matter enough to warrant a response. Over time, we lose touch with our ability to fight for ourselves. We mistake passivity for virtue, endurance for wisdom. But Nietzsche warned against this. He saw suppression as a kind of internal decay, a slow death of the spirit. In his philosophy, resentment, the bitter, repressed anger of the powerless, was the poison that led individuals to deny their own strength, to turn against themselves rather than against what oppresses them. Schopenhauer too saw anger as a signal, not of irrationality, but of will, of vitality, of the self's rejection of its own subjugation. He believed that those who suppress anger lose something fundamental, the fire that drives action, the force that carves new realities from old ones. And Viktor Frankl, in his study of human resilience, observed that those who survived the unthinkable were often those who allowed themselves to feel their deepest emotions, including their rage. In the face of suffering, anger became not a weight but a weapon, not a burden but a beacon. So what if we've been lied to? What if anger isn't a weakness but a guide? What if it is not something to be ashamed of but something to be understood? If anger is dangerous, it is only because we have never been taught how to use it. But what happens when we learn? That is where the true revelation begins. Anger does not simply vanish when ignored. It transforms. Suppressed anger seeps into the cracks of the psyche, shaping behavior in ways we rarely recognize until it is too late. It breeds frustration, passive aggression, self-sabotage, and even physical illness. Consider the person who bites their tongue in every argument, only to lash out at the smallest inconvenience. The employee who tolerates years of mistreatment, only to one day quit in a burst of destructive fury. The lover who suppresses resentment, only for it to metastasize into contempt. These are not signs of emotional control, they are symptoms of unresolved rage. Neurologically, chronic suppression of anger rewires the brain. The amygdala, the emotional center, remains in a heightened state, triggering cortisol release and chronic stress. The body keeps score. It remembers every injustice endured, every boundary ignored, every time we swallowed the fire instead of wielding it. But what if we could reclaim it? What if, instead of fearing anger, we mastered it? The moment of awakening is never gentle. It does not come with soft whispers or polite revelations. It arrives like a thunderclap, like a long dormant volcano finally breaking the surface, molten rage spilling over the edges of suppression. And in that moment, you realize the truth. You were never meant to be tamed. Imagine this. You are standing at the edge of everything you've been told. Every lesson about patience, every warning against fury, every doctrine that preached submission as virtue. Before you is a path uncharted, a road paved not with blind obedience, but with raw, unfiltered power. Your hands are no longer trembling in restraint. Your breath is no longer shallow with hesitation. For the first time, you do not silence your anger. You listen to it. And it tells you something you have always known, but never dared to accept. You have been conditioned to fear your own fire. They told you that anger leads to destruction, but they never told you that sometimes destruction is necessary. That some structures must burn so new ones can be built. That some chains must be shattered so freedom can be reclaimed. The great revolutionaries of history did not kneel before injustice. The philosophers who reshaped thought did not accept old paradigms as truth. The artists who carved new realities did not apologize for their defiance. They let their anger speak. They let it fuel them, and so must you. There is a difference between wielding anger and being consumed by it. This is where the rebellion begins, not in reckless destruction, but in deliberate transformation. Because true power is not in losing control. True power is in mastering it. Anger at its core is not chaos. It is energy. It is fuel. The question is not whether you should feel it, but how you will use it. The ancient Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius did not deny his anger. He examined it, channeled it, refined it. He saw anger as a call to action, not as a blindfold. Nietzsche did not advocate for the suppression of rage. He called for its sublimation, for the transformation of resentment into will, of helplessness into purpose. He saw anger as a tool for self-overcoming, for becoming something greater than what was dictated by fate. And in the samurai code of Bushido, anger was never seen as weakness. It was honed like a blade, tempered, sharpened, made precise. A warrior who lost himself in rage was a fool. But a warrior who channeled his anger into focus, into unwavering intent, he was unstoppable. The mistake we make is thinking that mastery means elimination, that the only way to control fire is to extinguish it. But the truth is this: fire is not meant to be buried. It is meant to be wielded. So, how do you wield it? 1. Interrogate your anger. Every time anger rises, ask, what is this fire trying to tell me? Anger is rarely irrational. It is an instinct, a signal. It arises when a boundary has been crossed, when an injustice has occurred, when something within you refuses to remain silent. Do not suppress it. Translate it. 2. Turn resentment into action. Resentment is anger that has been left to rot. It is rage with no outlet, no movement, no purpose. This is the trap. If you let anger stagnate, it will poison you. The antidote? Action. If you are furious about a situation, change it. If you are enraged by injustice, fight it. If your anger stems from your own inaction, wake up and move. 3. Direct the energy with precision. Uncontrolled anger lashes out in all directions, destroying everything, including yourself. But controlled anger? It is a scalpel, not a hammer. Do not waste it on petty battles. Do not squander it on meaningless fights. Instead, channel it into creation. The greatest works of art, the most powerful ideas, the most seismic shifts in history, all were born from defiant fire. 4. Refuse to be manipulated. Those who fear their own anger are easy to control. They are taught to be passive, to accept, to endure. But those who understand their anger, they cannot be silenced. Know this: every system that benefits from your submission will try to convince you that your anger is wrong, that your rage is unjustified, that your resistance is unnecessary, but history has shown otherwise. Every revolution was once called unreasonable. You were told to fear your anger because those in power fear what happens when you stop being afraid. But the moment you embrace it, not as a curse, but as a gift, you become untouchable. You become free. And now, the final step remains. Because there is a deeper truth beyond even this. A realization so profound that once understood, it will change everything. Prepare yourself, because once you see it, there is no going back. There comes a moment in every journey where all illusions collapse, where every half-truth and conditioned belief burns away, leaving only the raw, unfiltered essence of reality. This is that moment. Because the truth is this: anger was never your enemy. It was your call to awakening. Imagine standing before a mirror, not the kind that reflects your face, but one that reveals the deepest layers of your being. In it, you see everything you were taught to suppress, every moment of betrayal, every instance where you swallowed your pain instead of voicing it. But most of all, you see your fire, the rage that was never weakness, but power in disguise. And for the first time, you don't look away. Anger was never just an emotional reaction. It was never just an inconvenience to be managed or a flaw to be eradicated. It was something far greater, a messenger, revealing where you have been wronged, where your boundaries have been crossed, where your soul demands change. A protector, arising when something within you refuses to be broken, when your very existence pushes back against oppression. A creator, fueling revolutions, forging masterpieces, propelling humanity forward when complacency would have left it stagnant. History remembers those who embrace their fire: the suffragettes, the revolutionaries, the visionaries who refused to accept injustice, the artists, the warriors, the thinkers who turned their rage into something eternal. What if your anger was never a curse but a gift? What if the very thing you were taught to fear was the thing that could set you free? The ultimate shift, transcending the fear of power. There is only one thing more dangerous than rage: the refusal to use it wisely. Uncontrolled anger is destruction. Suppressed anger is corrosion. But mastered anger, it is liberation. Because true mastery is not about eliminating your fire. It is about learning how to wield it, like a sword in the hands of a skilled warrior, like a torch lighting the path forward. This is the final, most powerful realization. Anger was never meant to be buried. It was meant to be transformed. So the question is no longer, should I suppress my anger? The question is, what will I do with this fire? The answer will define everything. Subscribe for more and don't forget to like and make a comment. See you on the next video.